Arias.
Thank you. Multi-match for Tumult. That's fine? Okay. Bună dimineața for everybody. Before I want to start, I want to thank you, all the organization, just to bring me here and have the opportunity to explain my job. Also, the technical man that made possible of this. And I would like to have a special mention to Dr. Liliana Valadrau, because she's taking care of us for these days. Also want to thank you, Dr. Jorge Arana, that made the possibility I'm here today, and to share with me the passion to help children with brain injury and disability, and also social exclusion. And all of you to share the time with me. I mean, perhaps you can be outside on the beach, just taking a nice bath, but just prefer to stay here just to wait to listen what I need to say. So thank you very much to all of us. Okay, you already have tell my curriculum. I like to, because I'm very visual. Pilar Vergara and I, we make jokes all the time about vision, neurological pathways, and so on. I'm very visual person, so I just always tell about my curriculum with the logo from the institution I have been. So I want to thank you also, all my teachers allowed me to be here today. But the most important thing I have to do today is to share my work with brain injured children for the last 35 years. We work in neocortex with non-progressive brain injury. Probably I have seen all the genetic neurological problem you can see. And I help many kids, but probably they help me much more. They give a proposal for my life, and I want to thank you, all the children of the world, the possibility to be here today. So, human brain develops in a very organized way. We developed the sensory input into the brain and the motor ability to explore our environment. And this is what happened when the child is around 12 months of age, and should happen. If not, we will find cerebral palsy children which have not ability to explore the environment. And sometimes they are also disconnect visually, auditory, or tactile with this environment. And when a child is collapsed in this first maturity process, the rest is over, okay? Unfortunately, in the last 10, 20 years, medical doctors are more sensitive to all the problems of the premature or all the hypoxic and ischemic during the birth, and the number of cerebral palsy are diminished in the population. But then we have the next material process, that is language. Language is the very first communication tools we have, the humans. I can't tell you my job because we can't speak in English. If I speak in Spanish, we have a problem. And if you hope I speak in Romanian, we have a problem. So English is giving us the possibility to communicate. When a child have not the possibility to communicate, we have a huge problem. And this group of population is growing up very quickly in our environments. All the children diagnosed that autistic spectrum syndrome and language problems are increasing so dramatically lately in these last few years. We don't know the reason of increase in autism. Probably is because we have a broad mechanism to evaluate. Perhaps the environment is affecting more and more to genetic expression of the autistic genes. Perhaps we are using too much this kind of device, and children are getting very few opportunities to speak out loud with people in the first 2 or 3 years of their lives. And that have a great impact in language areas of the brain. So we don't know, but we are seeing an increase of language, autistic, and all this kind of population. When I started to study in the United States many years ago, we have one autistic every 10,000 children. Now in Spain, we have one autistic every 100 children. And in the United States, the last study is talking about one every 58 children. So it's just going up very high, the problems we are having in this situation. And finally, the last maturity of the brain goes to the higher cognitive function, preparing the children for formal learning at the school, mean reading, writing. So we have seen many children with attention deficit disorder, learning problems, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia. And this is also increasing in population, sometimes because the environment is pushing very hard to the children, and sometimes it's because all the process to organize the brain is not being properly organized. Sorry, I didn't know why I'm not having that over there. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm working with cerebral palsy and working with autism and working with attention deficit disorder. Many people said, Maria, you work everything. No, I just work with one thing, is neurological development of the children, okay? And you just need to organize the different levels of sophistication in the human brain and put the kid in the next level. So the most common diagnosis I work with is intellectual, communication, autism, attention deficit disorder, learning disorder, motor skill. It's not that I'm working or I am an expert on all these areas. I'm just working in neurodevelopment. And when you have, for example, perinatal aphasia, and you get a brain injured due to lack of oxygen during the brain, you can see here how many motor, sensory, cognitive, educational, behavioral, and neuropsychiatric problem you are can develop along your life. So we need to prevent, we need to work to organize the brain, because the brain is the organ responsible for behavior. The kind of children I work come from genetic code alteration. From the last 10 years, since all the human genome is being sequenced, we are finding more and more and more genetic problems. What we called before idiopathic is not idiopathic anymore. Is we are finding the specific gene in the genetic material. Why we have many problems in the brain? Because the genomic material is in all our cells. But if I'm a bone cell, I only going to express a very short part of that genetic material. The rest is going to be in the library. But the brain expresses 95% of all the genetic material along the life. So anything you happen in your genetic material is going to have consequence in how to organize the brain. Also infection. A few years ago, we were with this problem in Brazil with I'm sorry, I just get microcephalia due to flu in the mother, okay? Toxoplasmosis, all this infection during the pregnancy will have a huge consequence in the neurological organization and the brain injury. Also, any other mother condition, epileptic, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, anything like that will affect how you organize your child brain or your fetus brain. Also, prematures have a huge possibility to have a brain injury, especially if they are also low weight when they are born. When I was a child, 35 years ago, the youngest children that survived to the premature birth was 32 weeks of gestation, because that was the moment that the respiratory, the lung system mature. At this moment in Spain, we will activate a resuscitation protocol, 25 weeks of gestation. In England, 24. I'm not sure here, but because we have drugs that can accelerate the process of lung maturation, we get the survival on more and more children, more and more kids in earlier moments of the pregnancy. But that doesn't mean that the brain is preparing to do all the process in an incubator. Sometimes the brain damage is so huge, they cannot survive. Also, duration of the labor, 24 hours sometimes in the delivery room, things like that, especially when you are young and you have your first baby, sometimes it's quite complicated. And any condition of fetal distress, like a mechanical delivery, forceps, and so on, okay? And postnatal, okay, infection, stroke, head trauma is like in any other population, but sometimes children are more sensitive to that, okay? So we try to work on neurodevelopment, knowing that the period from birth to 6-8 years of age is the period where we organize all these pathways in the brain. Not all, but 80%. That makes a lot during this period of our lives. And it's genetic, of course. Sometimes you have very good genes, but it's also environmental and it's also genetic, okay? So it's not only you have the genes to organize your brain, you need to create all these pathways And because the environment is completely different from one people to the other, the neurological connection make us unique in terms of connectome. That is the reason we are neurodiverse. There are no two persons, there are two people, sorry, that are photocopied one of each other. Even identical twins have neurological organization that made them unique human beings, okay? So because our connectome, we organize during this period of our life. And here there are many women, I'm sorry, and each of each other are not a photocopy of each other, because you have one experience that organizes your brain. I have another experience that organizes my brain. So we have here a beautiful period of time to make possible a neurological organization that allowed that human being to put in a completely different situation for the future. So we have in neuroscience very clear that we need to create a good structure in our brain circuitry to have possibilities to get a good function in life. So in my office, it's completely forbidden to say, is a lazy boy or a lazy girl. My question is, he finished or she finished to organize the circuitry? If not, I'm not lazy speaking Romanian. I don't have circuitries in my brain to speak Romanian. So it's completely out of any possibility to talk about lazy boys or lazy girls, okay? Not even lazy people, okay? Not everybody have as many as neurological circuitries allowed to do things, okay? So why the brain? Because the brain controls everything. We are our brains, and we the brain is an organ that allows us to solve the problem for survive. It's very important to understand that the brain develops, first of all, as Pilar said before, for moving. The plants are the most important beings in Earth because they are allowed to clean the air, to produce energy, but they don't make movements, okay? So they don't develop a central nervous system. But now, we, the animals, that we don't take the energy from the sun in the photosynthesis, we just need to go and move to get the food and to avoid to be the food from the others. And in this mobility around the environment, we develop special cells that give us information from the environment and allow us to move in that environment. So visual, auditory, tactile, mobility, language, manual function, they are all controlled from the central nervous system, okay? And many times when I'm talking to mothers that forget the legs, legs are fine. The bones, the muscles, the tendons have not the problem. The problem is up there where the brain is not able to send, okay? So let's go to see some data. At the moment of the conception, we don't have brain. I mean, we just have one cell. And during the pregnancy, we have all these amount of cells produced. And if everything is fine during the childhood, you will keep the same number of neurons. At least you have a brain injury. okay? But if you see the weight on the perimeter, cranial perimeter, from birth to 6 or 8 years of age, we have here a huge, okay, let's go to see, okay. We have here huge brain growth. They are not due to a bigger number of cells. All this brain growth is due to the interaction with the environment. Okay, we have the same number of cells, but each cell is getting bigger and connecting with more neighbors and initiate all these axon terminals. And this is due to the interaction with the environment. The brain grows by use. If you don't use your brain, it's not possibility to do all this. So genetic is very important, but all this gives us a huge responsibility of how we create the environment for the full potential of the brain of the children. Okay, so this is something that we can manage. I cannot manage the gene yet. Perhaps in a few years, somebody will make a genetic engineer. But I don't need to do genetic engineer to be participant in life of children. I'm putting that children in the best situation for his neurological organization. Okay, so here's a graphic of what happened during the pregnancy. The weight of the brain during the pregnancy will be 23% around the weight of the brain of an adult. So we have like a 77% of possibilities to help to grow that brain. Okay. Of the birth, 23%, childhood, 80%, from 0 to 6, 8 years of age, till the moment we get plenty to the frontal lobe, okay, we organize 80% of the circuitry of the brain. And the rest of the 20% is for the puberty and the adolescent, when the sexual hormones get into the brain and make all this biochemical revolution. So we have a unique opportunity, okay? Neuroplasticity is in the base of all this. And this is one of my favorite pictures, where you see the connection in a newborn and a 24 months old child. The number of cells will be the same, but the process of create synapses with the cells, with neurons, is just in the top of the moment in the life. So you can see that connections, and you can see these pathways of connections that happen because we spent 2 years seeing, hearing, having a tactile experience, mobility, language, and manual function opportunities. Okay. Okay, here we see a graph that for me is very important, because density of synapses through the conception to the birth is experience independent, no more than biochemical experience of the mother, oxygen, nutrients, and things like that. But here we can see that the synapses during or the infancy is experience, expectant and dependent. Not only I need visual experience, if I not have visual experience, I will never develop visual pathway. It's not need that the language need somebody speaking to the child. It's because if nobody speaks the child, will never create the auditory pathway on the language areas. Somebody speaking to a child, another human being. No computer, no telephone, no TV, no, another human being. For language is so important, okay? And later on in our life, we will have neural plasticity. I hope to make a difference in your brains this morning. I come from Madrid to spend here a couple of hours talking to, an hour talking to you. And I hope to change some of your brain circuits, okay? So learning is modify our brain is possible anytime in our lives, but only if you decide to be here. It's only experience dependent, but very important during childhood, experience expectant and dependent. What happened during puberty? From birth to 6 years of age, we create all these synapses, and for use, we will prune all the synapses that are overproduced and all the synapses we don't use, okay? So we need to use our brain. The experience is the sculpture of all these circuits, okay? Much easier to create new circuits in the brain of children. The brain ability to change in response to experience is very high and then goes down along the life. But during the childhood, we spend energy, much less energy. I learned Spanish without no effort at all. I think so. Then I learned English with a lot of effort, and I will be very pleased to learn Romanian. But I'm getting very old, and probably the energy I need to put in my brain and the effort will be fast if I come to live here. But if I stay at home, probably in a week I will forget all the Romanian I tried to learn this week. Okay, I'm sorry. And why? Because we have many studies talking about recovery and of consciousness, functional outcome, and moderate and severe traumatic brain injury. We can use this for rehabilitation. This is a classic in my field, psychology of plasticity. Train the brain is one of the clear points, okay? This is a sentence of one of my teachers in the School of Medicine in Spain. In the human brain, experience transform in morphology, synapses, and function. Because I have that synapses, I can use it in life. Okay. The other big process to responsible for the growth in weight in the brain of the children is to white matter, okay, the myelin, that is not, we are not born with all the myelin. We just need going from primary sensory areas to secondary sensory areas, associative areas, motor areas. So as we are using that areas of our brain, okay, the brain is myelinize the synapses. I'm sorry, the quality is, this slide is not very good, sorry. We all, myelinize the sensory system first, then the motor system, And finally, the integrity system. Um, Sometimes I see many children with learning problems, everybody working in integrative system, and you go and evaluate the child and you see that there are sensory problems and there are motor problems, no problems, delays that we need to address before we go to the more formal learning in the school, academic school, because the pattern of myelinization is from the anterior to the frontal. So when you put all the responsibility of learning in the frontal lobe in a 6-year-old child that is not finished to organize the visual, auditory, motor pathway, you are asking him for an effort that he's not preparing to do it. And we are seeing a lot of learning problems due to delays in maturation of the brain. And that delays in maturation can be for any problem during the birth or even a lack of stimulation, okay? One of the most important child neuropsychologists in Spain, Dr. Portellano, said the increase in myelin is directly proportional to the degree of stimulation that a child receives. Okay. Learning is to myelinizate. Motor skill need to myelinizate. Also, what matter in learning, cognition, and in one of the biggest problems we are find now in the adolescent that are depression, anxiety, and things like that. Lack of myelin could be behind all these increase of problems. Okay, so what is my job? My job is neurological reorganization after the injury. Okay, and what we can do? Oh, we can decide to be in this pathway, or we can decide to be in this pathway. It's our decision because it's environmental. We are going to live in a rich environmental stimulation situation for the children, or we decide because he already have brain injury, let's go forget it. Okay, so it's our decision. Okay, but we can shape the learning curve on the brain. Okay, neuroplasticity is always there. Is our decision. Yes, if we can change that with epigenetic and environmental change. Okay, so when we work, this is like the theory behind our job. When we work, we present the brain circuit to the parents. We have input problems, we have output problems. Where is the situation? Okay, because obviously everybody, not everybody, but if you have some experience with children, you will see a gross motor problem or language problem or fine function problems. But it's not only the possibility. The problem in visual, auditory, tactile, gustative, and olfactory pathway is also be possible. Okay. So what is the most frequent sensory development problem we find? We find children that are hypersensitive, or problem with the filtering assessment. I'm not talking about the eyes or ears. I'm not an ophthalmologist. I'm not an ear doctor. Sometimes, as we have seen many times with children, the reception organ is fine, okay? Or this is not fine, the doctor will take care. But sometimes the doctor said the eye is fine, the ear is fine, but we still have problems in the sensory processing into the brain. At the hypo, they need a stronger stimulus. The hyper, they activated the brain with the slightest stimulus, okay? Especially, for example, in autistic children, hypersensitive, so high, visually, auditory, tactile, that they get overloaded for stimulus, and finally, they disconnect from the environment. They look like hypo when they are hyper. So when they are connected, they're all connected. Visually, they're like, oh, sometimes they do this with their auditory. They don't want physical contact because people hurt me when they just try to make a tender contact. I feel overloaded from the environment. And then the adaptive response of the brain is I take away from everything and I disconnect. So when I connect it, I'm all over the world. When I'm disconnecting, nobody's at home. So we need to regulate all this process, because what happened? If I have sensory processing problems, I'm going to create unimodal maps in the brain alterate. But when I integrate visual, auditory, tactile maps, my vision of reality is not going to be a regular vision of reality that we all consider normal, okay? But polymodal cortical malconfusion are very common in our population. So what is the reality? I don't know, but I use the maps of reality to plan my motor response. As Pilar said before, if I had not a visual input that is the quality, I'm going to have problems to move around the environment, okay? So output motor based in the information that is already altered is going to do learning problems. So we just need to be very sensitive to all the sensory problems, because it's not the child is blind or deaf. That will be the most. But if the brain is not processing properly the input in all these areas, is going to create output problems, okay? So we need to sculpt learning and memory circuits, okay? What happened in the motor areas? The output part of the brain, okay? The output brain will be motor delay, cerebral palsy, language development impairment, manual function impairment, dyspraxia. And here, we need to grow by use. The output areas of the brain work by repetition, repetition, and repetition. And for that, we need to give child opportunities and success, opportunities and success, opportunities and success. Opportunities is the key word, okay, in motor development. In language, sometimes we just want a perfect language. No, no, no. Child need to talk and talk and talk before to talk properly. You know, my English is not that good, okay? It's not my first language. Probably I make huge mistakes in terms of grammar, phonetical, pragmatic, everything. But I don't care. May I communicate with you? Yeah. Continue practice, Maria. The most you practice, the better you are. Okay. The less you practice, you forget. So practice is the key. Yesterday I was talking with a girl. No, yesterday no, the day before. I said, you know, Rafa Nadal, I'm not sure, but sure you know Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi. Oh yes, of course, of course. You think these people get to the point where they are just playing 1 hour a day, once a week? No, they play 20 years, 8 hours a day. One day, another opportunity will be a miracle. I play tennis with no training at all. Will be a miracle. Maria became Cristiano Ronaldo with no training at all. I mean, I have been training my brain, but not my body. They have been training their bodies for a long time, and they are so good. So I tell this teenager, go and train. You want to do better? Train, train, and train. But it's very important to know if we need to work with children, is an input or output. I didn't bring any video, so just a picture, much easier. I was evaluating this girl called Nayara, that is a Spanish name. She was 8 years of age. Of course, she have neurological problems. And she made this draw. And I said, you can't sign the draw for me? And she write her name perfectly in a mirror way. Okay, she start N-A-E-R. And I said, okay, great. Let's go to, if I am a regular teacher, I will send her to train manual function with directionality in writing, okay? And we should go from the left to the right and from the top to the down, okay? This is the official space coordinates for writing in our countries. But I don't put a writing program. I said, can you write your name with this pirate patch in your left eye? Oh, yes, it's a Lego patch. So they love it. So she put in her left eye, because I want to have right hand and eye coordination. I do on purpose. And as soon as I patch the eye, 30 seconds later, she was writing her name properly. If you solve a problem in 30 seconds, really is not the problem, okay? The problem was visual. I sent her to Pilar Vergara. We work together. We are also friends. I said, Pilar, I think she has a problem of competition in the visual fields. I need your help. Because the symptom is an output, manual function, but really the cause is how is the visual integration of visual fields working. So if I do a program of manual function for 6 months, do you think the visual processing of this girl will be better? And the answer is no, no. Will be 6 months older, mom will be 6 months more desperate, and she will be 6 months closer to throw the towel in her development, okay? So it's very important that all the people working around children try to do our best in learning, studying, and find the solution for the children, okay? Because we can make a big difference in one person's life. This is the developmental profile I use at home, but it's in Romanian because we have like 3 families in Spain, they're in Romania. And sometimes for them to speak in this, in the Spanish language about their child brain development is quite complicated. So one of them, mother, make a translation for me. So I decided when Liliana and Pilar invite me to come to this conference, I'm going to put one slide in Romanian. So I use this developmental profile to evaluate vision, auditory, tactile, mobility, language, and manual function. And as you can see here, we have this column where we have chronological age, where if everything is fine, will be activated, okay? When you have neurotypical child with 3 years of age, you will find he will be around 3 years function in all the areas. When we have a child that is not neurotypical because of a brain injury, we can find up and down in different areas. Definitely, I don't work with chronological age. My work is with neurological age. I don't care about the chassis, okay? If I have a 9 years old that works in her or his brain as 3 years of age, I will design a program for a 3 years of age, okay? And we have in the last few years a good area of the science, because we need to do a scientific studies, that is the neurobiology of the environmental enrichment, okay? We already know many years ago about this, but now we have a lot of studies that told us that we can change the brain, making environmental enrichment. And it's beautiful, okay? And more studies are biochemical, talking about how physical activity increase brain neurotrophic factors, how stimulation make more synaptic creation and things like that. So early environmental influence on the development of the children brain and function structure is good for each human being, but also it's good for the state to have brain in your children that cannot be incorporated in the society is a big money burden. For me, it's a personal disaster, but in terms of political people, it's very good to invest in early intervention, because that is much better for the person, for the families, and also for the state, okay? The fathers of neurology of environmental enrichment are Dr. Kandel and Dr. Donald Hebb. They are a classic in our field. Hebb law is neuron that fired together, wired together. So the most opportunities the neuron have fired together, it's much easier to connect in a circuitry. And Dr. Kandel got a Nobel Prize because he described in aplysia the biochemical mechanism of long-term potentiation or long-term deprivation of the synapses, okay? So a good environment is not a luxury, it's just a necessity, okay? Especially for all the kids, but the ones have a problem in their brain, it's just mandatory, okay? So what we do at home is, with all this, design physiological development programs, respiration, nutrition programs where the child needed, sensory development programs, visual, auditory, tactile stimulation, okay? Motor development programs like rhythmic movement, balance stimulation, coordination in cross-para, motor, crawling, creeping, walking. Also intellectual programs with bits of intelligence, reading and writing, language, and so on. Our work is philosophy is child-oriented in all this area of development, but it's also parent-oriented. as a professional, I will go in and out of many kids' lives, but the permanent people in a child life is parents. So I do a lot of training with parents and a lot of family training, because the most a parent understand what's going on in their child brain, the easier is to cope with behavior, to cope with disabilities, to be in the world. So for me, a very important thing is train parents, mothers and fathers, because they are going to be in their child life forever. Our work methodology, well, we are a multidisciplinary team with psychologists, teachers, medical doctor, and coming from biology. We do neurodevelopmental stories, neurofunctional evaluation, diagnosis. We design individual stimulation programs, and we follow up the families through the tutorials. Okay, and these are some of our results lately. We present all this data with a very small population, because 72 is not like 1,000. I have always this problem when we do this kind of collecting data. We are not a pharmacological treatment, so it's very difficult to have 10,000 people to do a study. Okay, and for me, it's very important to be scientific, but we are not being scientific in the same way in a pharmacy company, okay? Because we don't have this huge population. So 72 is the last 3 years, because last year with COVID lockdown was a problem, okay? So we measure at the beginning of the evaluation, the program, the chronological age and the neurological age, and we made the chronological developmental rate, okay? And you see here that even at the end of the study, the children is still almost 30 points behind the group peers. During the program, we put developmental rate almost at the same rate of the peers. That means they need more job, but we can make it. Okay, it's not easy for them. It's not easy for the parents. It's not easy for us. But if we increase the use of the brain in many occasions, we can make us the same developmental rate than the peers. Well, my recommendation is please do another 18 months of program so we can make another big chunk of progress. Okay. This is a graphic to show that. Oh, I bring my books. It's a nonsense because all are written in Spanish. So I usually said, okay, if you want to read a little bit more, but they are written in Spanish. So this is both are in paper, but lately we publish in Amazon, okay? Because the ebook are much easier to publish. One is how to help your child with neurodevelopmental problems. And the other one is about audition, behavior, and learning, okay? And I want to thank you, all of you, your attention, and I will be more than pleased to answer your questions.
Thank you, Maria, very much.
My pleasure.
Your presentation was very interesting.
Thank you.
We understood you very well, despite the language. It was very good. It was okay. I asked my colleagues if they have any question for you or for Pilar. They can put the question and I'm sure you will answer.
Okay.
Ask if you can make a connection between biology and brain. You can see that in such a way the brain development in a binary environment.
Oh, okay. I
That's
have,
your comment.
okay, I'm not sure at all. Yes, my A is sure, the rest not. I don't have too much experience with balneology, but definitely is an environmental enrichment, okay? Because physiologically, I have seen for yesterday and today that you make a lot of change in biochemistry and physically. So if you have a technology in this term, balneary can be a piece of technology that improve physiological state of the body, will be a huge impact in the brain. I'm not sure if any study in brain development, but at this moment, we know the best way to promote the liberation of brain neurotrophic factors is to change the body, is to change the physical activity, is to change the irrigation in the brain. So if balneology allowed to improve mobility, improve circulation, stabilize hormones and things like that, definitely have a huge impact in the brain. I don't have that much experience with children, but probably if I need to propose an investigation here with the population I see around the highway, I will say, let's go to see how people keep cognitive abilities before and after to spend here a week. So you can measure time reaction, memory for words, nomination, things like that will be very interesting because most of the investigation in neuroscience today is in elderly people. We are very concerned about all these neurological problems of dementia, Alzheimer, Parkinson, and things like that, because world population is getting elderly and elderly and elderly. And the three main points is nutrition, physical activity, and learning. And here, all the physiological variables are very much improved. That is my feeling. So definitely, I will say yes. Even I don't have very much experience with your job in balneology, but I will say will be very good to promote brain development, but especially to slow down brain elderly process.
Any question?
Great talk, Mario. It is fantastic what you do. I'm an endocrinologist and endocrinologist.
Endocrinologist.
So I
Yeah,
work with
sorry. Yeah, hormones.
Yes, they influence the brain absolutely and our behavior. And it is important to know, do we have any functional imaging capabilities to investigate these segments? functionally mentioned, functional MRI or any other, there are huge developments in the field.
We have, but I'm not sure, because my group of population are in small kids. The studies have done with thyroxine hormone, but that's it. They don't work very much with testosterone, oxytocin, and so on. What about cortisol? They don't make studies of cortisol in children. They do studies of cortisol or glucocorticoids with post-traumatic soldiers. Yeah. So in my field, I will say, of course, hormones make a huge difference, but I'm not sure the full picture. Definitely, I would love to be able to make an investigation about that. Okay, yeah, I would love it. And I think your proposal is so interesting, so interesting. And I think in the future, functional MRI will be not as a diagnostic tool only, but more investigation. Only at this moment, the huge universities like Harvard, Stanford, and so on can make it. Small places like me are not able to do it, but I hope in the future. Yeah.
We're living in a small world.
We just need to share knowledge.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you to you.
Mai era o întrebare din sală?
I am only a very young doctor, but still growing. And I wanted to ask you, I liked very much the broad perspective that you brought with this presentation. And you talked about the fact that the developmental changes of children are a problem in this moment and maybe a bigger problem in the future. And as a doctor, we are used to perceive and to treat the effect of the diseases. We don't put in our formation, in our education, that much of a highlight on the processes.
Yeah.
And also as a parent, because I also have a small child, he's only 9 months old, I act instinctively. When I try to grow him up, I use the pattern I was raised by. So I'm having two questions. First of all, as a doctor, how can we be prepared for these changes? Because the humans are changing, the environment is changing, and what kind of tests can we use to address this sensory impairment? So to say, in order to see them, to perceive them, first of all, because I think technology is very advanced in some parts of the world, and you can use MRI technology and so on. But in the clinic part, how can we interfere?
My first advice is study.
All right.
Brain development. Because at this moment, we take pieces and pieces from here and there, but it's not a huge movement on brain development for child. No place in the world. I mean, Harvard is probably the biggest place. I put in some of my pictures. Harvard Developmental Child Place is probably the one place in the world where they are doing the most serious work, but it's just pieces here and there, okay? Why? Because 2 generations ago, brain development was in mother's hands, okay? I'm not sure here in Romania, but in Spain, mothers take care of the children. When I said, who is responsible for language development of this child? 2 generations ago, of course, mom. Today, I said, who is responsible for this child language development? They said the school teacher, okay? Because women take place in professional lives. So it's like we are taking pieces here and there, because we need to put all that together, okay? We need to study because, for example, we are using masks and people is saying, because the mask use is going to be a delay of 1 year on language for the children, because we need to see faces. The humans, beings are a great readers of faces, but now we have language with no faces. Perhaps you and I can make an extrapolation of the feeling because we already have experience, but the 2 years old don't have any experience. So how can make the faces if they never see faces? So also the electronic devices is going to make a change because the time we spend with devices is lack of time of social cognitive development. So we are going to find a society where the social cognition is going to be in all places. So human groups where 2,000 individuals go to 12,000 million people living together. So you go through Madrid or Bucharest or wherever, and you find faces that you never seen again or before. And now we are going to go to another scenario that will be again very small group of people. All this will have an impact in our brains because the evolution of human system, human neurological system, have been at the same time of the social group, okay, the social cognition. So we don't have idea. I don't know, but I'm concerned if I don't give the child as many tools as possible to have achieve the maximal human being potential in the next year. So study. And then some people, we are commitment with development with easy tools to evaluate our Denver screening test. In Spain, we use ICEA Levant test. Many young doctors that have many experience, or the pediatrician, they are seeing a lot of children need to have screening tools, because we know if we make a good screening for autism spectrum disorder, as soon as we start to act with the early intervention programs, the less impact we have that problem in their brain, less problems in the future. So we need to start to do early intervention 15, 18, 24 months of age, because as soon as we start to treating and to stimulate that children, the easier will go for them and for the families, and less incapacitate for the future. So there are some of these screening tools that should be mandatory in pediatricians, nurse, and doctors. Okay, yeah, the most known is the developmental Denver screening test or something like that.
Thank you.
Dacă sunt cumva întrebări și pentru Pilar Vergara? If there are any questions for you, I ask. Okay. If there are no more questions, thank you again. There have been delightful to hear you, to hear how our mind is working, and to have this information from two beautiful minds.
Thank you.